So, insecurity is such a vulnerable subject. Everyone has a measure of insecurity, and most people will let it go unaddressed for the rest of their life. And it will lead to madness, and that's not being dramatic. I wonder if you've ever noticed the seeds of madness emerging in your own life just out of a need to prove or please or achieve, and an obsession with what others think, an obsession with keeping other people happy, an obsession with being found out as inadequate. All these things create massive mental instability, cause us to show up at our worst where it matters most. So, it's a really important subject to talk about, and very, very necessary. But, so I acknowledge you for being here. I acknowledge you for being willing to think this through, because most people never will. Most people will let this go unaddressed in their life. So when it comes to actually solving this problem, because I think that's what we're all here to do. Obviously, most people are going to mask it, medicate it, avoid it. But this problem, just like any other problem, can be solved. There are plenty of people throughout time who have solved this problem, and it turns out they've followed a very consistent path and pattern. So my job and the whole intention of the Insecurity Project is to go, wouldn't it be cool to make that path clear so that other people could follow it? Wouldn't that be a useful thing to do? So this problem demands a bit of clear thinking, some intelligent thinking. And, so I love thinking about how change really happens. So let me show you how this works. So I've been in the change space, I think, for over 20 years. It's kind of the only thing I've really done as an adult. It's been my whole life's work has been in some way or other working with people to help them change and grow and become the best version of themselves. One of the things that I've noticed is that people consistently make a few key mistakes, and not because they're silly or bad, just because they don't know any better. So here's mistake number one. Consistently, people operate with the wrong metaphor when it comes to change. So this is metaphor is the language of the unconscious. Metaphor is what shapes our whole experience. And so the metaphors we have, and often the ones that we're most unaware of, are the ones causing most impact on our life. So if you've got healthy, strong metaphors that are empowering, happy days. But if you have limiting or disempowering metaphors, then they can create some quite significant limitation. So here's what I see time and time again when people start thinking about change. They think that it's like climbing to the top of a mountain. And I'd be interested if you could let me know if this resonates with you, if you've ever felt like this, that to be happy or successful or to flourish or to live a meaningful life is like climbing to the top of a snow-capped mountain. So you're at the bottom. You can barely even make out the top through the clouds. But that's where you're supposed to be. That's where you should be. That's where a good person would be. But here you are at the bottom. And so I'll just make sure I'm able to. Yeah, thanks, Stephen. Some others are saying they can relate to this for sure. So just this sense of, having to climb to the top, and it's all about effort and energy and discipline and focus and hard work. But it's hard, right? And you've had many failed attempts before, and you're sitting at the bottom of the hill again, looking up at the top, thinking, I'm not sure if I've even got what it takes to make it. So it's very discouraging, very demotivating, and leaves you feeling pretty discouraged about the whole change process. I love coaching, people midlife, because young people still like that the metaphor is this consistently. I find that, and it's not surprising, because I think young people love to be able to prove their strength by what they can do and prove that they are right by what they can do. So yeah, they want to go climb a mountain. They want to go prove they're awesome by climbing a mountain. By the time you're kind of mid to late 30s, you're tired of climbing mountains and you're hoping there's a better way, because this way hasn't actually worked for you. This is all about self-discipline, fighting against yourself, dominating, subduing, suppressing. Self-discipline is massively overrated. It's a young man strategy, a young person strategy, because it requires you to have energy to waste. I think the older you get, the less energy you have to waste. You cannot afford inefficient strategies that don't actually work. So anyone else relate to that or feel like that's kind of this inadvertent metaphor. And, culturally, this is what's supported and celebrated. That's kind of what we're presented with all the time, that change is like that. We celebrate heroes who go do amazing things, who discipline themselves, who fight themselves, who prove how awesome they are. But that's supposed to inspire us. So it doesn't work, though, and it's a very brutal and unkind strategy to create any kind of change. And ultimately, it destroys the relationship with yourself. Thankfully, it's not what lasting change depends upon. So let's have a look at how lasting change happens. It's much more like this. You're in a parked car with a handbrake on, already sitting on top of the hill. So you have all that you need inside you already. The goal is at the bottom of the hill. All that's between you and that goal is the brake. There's still some work to be done, right? But it's very, very different, because back here, it's like, who knows if you've even got what it takes? Who knows if it's even possible? You want it to be possible. You hope it's possible, but maybe it's not. Here, it's like, of course it's possible. People always ask me, Jamin, do you think it, is it possible for me to actually have this? Well, like, clearly it is, because you've got everything you need. There's nothing wrong with that car. There's nothing wrong with gravity. There's nothing broken in this picture. There's no variables. It's just the brake. Now that brake represents your doubt, fear, insecurities, limiting beliefs, past mistakes, failures. It's your internal story, and it's what's in the way. People are holding themselves back from success, not allowing themselves to move forward in case they get found out as enough. So sure, there's some work to be done, but it's a very, very different metaphor, this kind of work compared to that kind of work. So this is self-discipline. Have a guess what kind of program this is. If it's not self-discipline, you may have heard me talk about this before, but what's the updated version of motivation for change if it's not self-discipline? What do you reckon? Not sure. Questions? Framing? Yeah, Lucy. Good to see you, Lucy. Permission is the thing. Self-permission. So counterintuitive, definitely countercultural, but your ability to give yourself permission to move forward now is the only thing standing in the way. Self-discipline, self-permission. It's a game changer. Self-permission is such a beautiful, long-lasting form of energy and motivation. It requires you to work with yourself rather than against yourself. It requires you to confront the resistance and understand it rather than just trying to suppress it. If part of you doesn't want to succeed, over here you're trying to kill that part or squash that part or fight that part or hate that part. Lucy's saying she can't speak. She'd like to. I'd need to take you off mute for you to speak. Lucy, let me just try and... All right, now try. Lucy, are you there? You're able to... Everyone should be able to hear you now if you want to say anything about the self-permission piece. Maybe I've missed my window. Anyway, I'll put you back on mute. Let me know if you'd like to answer the next question too.
Sorry, Jamin, can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you now. Yeah, great. Excellent.
Yeah. I didn't know if we were meant to be speaking or not. So,
so you're just talking away and hoping everyone could hear, and then you realise sadly that all those beautiful words were wasted.
I didn't. No, I was just trying to juggle this app. That was all.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, you got it working now, so everyone can hear you. Yeah. So, have you kind of noticed the difference between self-discipline and self-permission in your life?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's way easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the never-ending source of motivation. Cool. Appreciate it. I'll put you back on mute, and we'll keep. Cool. So, mistake number one to avoid is change is not like climbing to the top of a snow-capped mountain. Change is letting go of the handbrake, giving yourself permission. The second mistake I see people make consistently is they're not sure about what the problem is. So when I get the privilege of coaching someone, one of my favorite ways to start the conversation is with these two questions. What problem are you most committed to trying to solve right now? And someone will say, well, often they'll say, something to do with their health or their finances or relationships. And I'll follow with the next question. Are you sure that's the problem? Because consistently people try and solve the problems that they can see in their life. They try and solve problems where the pain shows up, and it shows up in their health. It shows up in their finances. It shows up in their relationship. So that's where they invest energy in trying to solve it. The problem is that's not where it was created. So all energy, time and money spent trying to solve it there is ultimately wasted. Those surface level areas are just fruit, are just symptoms of the deeper problem. So if you were to go to this factory you see here and notice these little girls coming out of the assembly line like this, and you notice that they have blue dresses, and you get really frustrated by that because you clearly remember ordering red dresses. You don't like blue dresses. Blue dresses aren't going to work for you. It must be red dresses. So you've got two options to have red dresses on these girls. There may be more obscure options, but two main options, how to fix this problem. What are the two options as you see it? Anyone willing to have a go? What are the two options? How could you fix this problem? How could you see this little girl have red dresses? Well, yeah, Stephen, exactly. You either got to go back to the source. You got to go back to the factory, fix the machine is one option. That's an option that makes sense because obviously these little girls are just the end of the assembly line. So if you want a different product, it makes sense to go back and change the machine. There is another option though. What would be the other option if you don't change it at the source? The only other option available to you if you want red dresses. Find out who likes blue dresses. Yeah, that's good. No one wants blue dresses, it turns out. You've done your market research and they've got to be red. So they've got to be changed. Yeah, okay, cool. Obviously, so the other option is to manually post-production change this red dress, this blue dress to a red one, and then this one, and then this one, and then this one, and then this one. You could sit there manually, take that blue one off and replace it with a red one. Now, obviously that's a strange way to do the change because sure, you fix the problem, but you got to fix every single problem again and again and again because they keep coming out like this. So have a guess which way people do change in their life. Do you think who thinks most people go back and fix the machine when it comes to change? Or who thinks most people trying to change the dress? Yeah, obviously the dress. That most people are behavior managing themselves. They look at their results and go, oh, that's weird, that's strange, that's broken, oh, that's frustrating, that's annoying, that's not what I wanted. Great, I'm going to fix that, I'm going to change that, I'm just going to stop that. And they fix it. Great, excellent, well done. But then they got to fix it again tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. Because it's not the problem. Those blue dresses are not the problem. They're clearly not the problem. They're coming out perfectly for how they were created. I love this idea from the world of coaching. It says people work perfectly. It's one of my favorite ideas. I think it changes the game because typically people think there's nothing perfect here. They think they're broken and they need fixing. But this idea from NLP says, no, the results you're getting are the exact results you've designed your system to produce. They're not broken. Of course, they keep coming out with blue dresses. That's exactly what you should expect. I get that's not what you want, but that's what you've designed. So that's what you'll keep getting until you change the design. So someone keeps saying, oh man, I'm so frustrated I can't lose weight. It's like, what do you mean? Clearly you've designed a system where it works for you to be overweight. Someone says, oh man, I just can't be in a lasting relationship. It's so frustrating. There's something wrong with my ability to be in a relationship. What do you mean? Nothing wrong. That's exactly what you should expect based on your factory, based on what you believe, based on the story you're living out of, based on the system you have created. It's such an empowering idea, this concept of course, not with any judgment. It's like, well, what did you expect? Obviously, behavior is just the end of the assembly line. It's working exactly as it was intended. Your behavior is not the problem. Your behavior is never the problem. It's just the symptom. It's just the fruit of what has been created in the factory. So if you want to create lasting change, it makes sense then to put no effort into changing behavior and all the effort back into fixing the machine. And I love thinking about this because I think, then what looks like messy, weird, strange, random, mysterious human behavior, just go, well, it's clearly just a system. It's clearly a design. And if it's a design and a system, well, it can be understood and it can be deconstructed down to its smallest parts. So I hear people say all the time, I just don't know why I keep doing that. It's like, well, you can know if you'd like. You can know exactly why you do that. Every behavior is simply an attempt to meet a need. Often those strategies to meet needs were created at a time when you were much younger, when that was the best option you had, and you've never reviewed that process. And the system is still working exactly as you created it 20 years ago. And it will still continue to work like this for the next 20 years unless you go back and review it. So this is really important to kind of go, all right, what problem are you most motivated to solve? Are you sure that's the problem? Are you sure that's where the problem lies? Do you have a relationship problem, or could it be that your problem is deeper? Do you have a health problem, or could it be your problem actually is underneath that? Do you have a finance problem, or could it be that's just a symptom of a deeper problem? What is the real problem? What is actually going on here? It turns out that underneath all the emotional, relational, behavioral dysfunction and pain we go on always is a limiting belief. And it's not just a limiting belief about the world or other people, it's always a limiting belief about ourselves. It's our beliefs that produce our behavior. So just like in any system, you could go, right, this system is producing blue dresses. I can know exactly which part is producing blue dresses. You can look at your own life. You can go, this system keeps producing lack of money, fear of rejection, no motivation, health issues. Like, okay, so then what part exactly? What must I believe about myself in order to keep behaving that way? I love thinking about this scientifically because it just means the answer is always there. And if you're ready, you can know it. You can't change what you can't see, but seeing this stuff means you have all the opportunity in the world to actually change it. I don't know if that excites you, but gee, it gives me lots of energy. So then clearly, the next mistake relates to the fact that if you've got the wrong metaphor and you're trying to fix the wrong problem, then the tools you bring to fix that problem with that metaphor, sure, you might do some work, but it's not going to create lasting change. If you want to actually see transformation, well, it's going to start with understanding how change really happens. It's going to start with noticing what the problem really is, and then it's going to become essential that you have the right tools for that job. If you've got all those three lined up, happy days. This problem actually gets solved. I watch people solve this every day of the week, and it's a joy. So let me show you these tools and how this actually works. And they're not, while this is my work and my life's work has been to compile these, they're not mine. It's just my observations around how people have solved this in the past. Success leaves clues. So that's really great because it just means you can notice what has worked and replicate it. You don't have to recreate the wheel every time. So here are the 7 practices that anyone throughout the history of the world who has solved insecurity has followed these practices in some way or another. And you and I will be exactly the same. We won't find a different way. There is no different way. This is the way to understand who you are and what you're worth. So it starts with stepping into the light. That is the first practice. What do you think that means? You may have heard me talk about this before. You may have seen this model somewhere. You may have an idea of what that, but I'd love to get your ideas of what you think it means to step into the light. It's a little abstract, but I wonder what that brings up for you. Facing your fears, yeah, Lucy, yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a part of it. What else? What does it mean to you to step into the light? Acknowledgement, absolutely. Better understanding and awareness, yeah, cool. Thanks, Stephen. What else? What's it mean to you to step into the light? How do you understand that? Because most people won't step into the light, right? Most people will run and hide. That's the common response. We're afraid of being found out. Everyone's got insecurity, so the natural response to insecurity is to keep the lights off. Because if you turn the lights on, then you can see what's really happening. And people don't want to see what's really happening because what they fear may then become reality. Yet, Yoda says, named must your fear be, before banish it you can. So until you actually name what it is that you're afraid of, then you can't ever eradicate it. I love the fact, Jordan Peterson, rule number 10 in his 12 rules for life says, be precise in your speech, which means if you can't name what is wrong or name what you want, that the stuff that goes unnamed becomes a monster. So insecurity is a classic example of this. When you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, it's just a work of fiction. We're all enough. We've just created this fear that it's not true. So there's not actually a dragon to fight. It's just the thought of a dragon. Yet it's the fact that it goes unnamed and unaddressed which makes it become such a massive dragon, such a monster. So stepping into the light is to turn the light on this willingness to be here and to have a look. Whether you should be insecure or shouldn't be insecure, you're willing to stop running and face up to the fact that there is fear. Now, my favorite question for really helping people understand what their battle is this question. Well, let me just give you a bit of background, because typically people think they are afraid of failure and rejection as the two biggest fears, but that can't be the deepest level of fear. Because if you're afraid of failure, what's the only possible solution to that problem? If failure is the thing you're most afraid of, what is the only believable plan to protect yourself from failure? How do you solve that problem? If that's what the problem really is, I'm afraid of failure. I've always been afraid of failure. I don't like to fail. I'm terrified of failing. Okay, cool. You sure that's the problem? Yeah, that's the problem. All right, how are you going to fix that problem? Yeah, you're right. The only way to fix that problem is to never try. No, don't put yourself out there. Don't do anything. Problem solved. Except people who've succeeded in life certainly don't use that strategy. They try all kinds of things in all kinds of ways, and a lot of the time it doesn't work out how they intended. So it has to be a different plan. Same with rejection. You're like, oh, I'm just terrified of rejection. I always think people think the worst of me. I feel like people don't like me. I'm just so motivated to please everyone and keep everyone happy so no one rejects me. If that's the deepest level of fear that people will reject you, the only way to solve that problem is to never put yourself out there and try and keep everyone in your world happy, which is not a believable plan at all. And the point is, that's not what the problem really is. Here's the question which exposes the deepest level of fear. Welcome to write it down. It's a useful one. And if that were to happen, what does it say about me? If I was to fail or I were to be rejected, what does that say about me? That I am a failure. that I'm not worthy of love. So now you're at the deepest level of fear because it's all about you. We're actually not afraid of others' opinions. We're not afraid of what others think or will say or do. It's the implications of those things. We're actually most afraid of our own opinion. We are afraid in some way that we are inadequate, not good enough, not worthy. That's the fear. But just naming it, saying it out loud on purpose, acknowledging and accepting it, it is the only way this ever gets solved. Confronting, but incredibly empowering. The second practice is to take responsibility. So I'm sure we all kind of get that responsibility is important. It's hard, but it's essential when it comes to this. So I'd love, again, what are your thoughts around why is responsibility, why does it make the list? Why does responsibility get a Guernsey in the 7 essential practices? What does that mean to you? How do you understand that? This one, when I got this, it just changed everything for me. And it's always interesting watching clients go through a process where this becomes more than just a concept to it becomes something they actually accept as true. Blame energy is wasted energy. I agree, Stephen, but why? Why is it wasted? Because it's fun. Blame makes a lot of sense. It's like you're climbing someone else's mountain. Yeah. Why else? Because this is really important because, I think blame is such a natural response to life. When there is injustice, where we get ripped off, where we get used and abused, where people say and do cruel things toward us, it feels natural to blame those people or those situations for our results. And I think that's totally justified. I think blame is fair. Blame makes sense. There is only one problem with blame, as I can see it. I think everything is all good. Blame's wonderful. Blame's excellent, useful, a good friend, provides welfare needs. It only has one downside. What's the downside of blame? Yeah, I agree, Stephen. Well, yeah, well said. It not only does it rarely change anything, it doesn't change anything. Lucy, you're right. It gives away all your power. You have no power to change anything because the problem is outside you. So then the solution is outside you as well. So not only does it not give you anything, when you actually understand the nature of insecurity, you realize that this actually wasn't created outside of you. Storytelling 101 as human beings says that we are storytellers. All we have is story. We go into the world and we tell stories about our experience. So we have painful experiences and we internalize them. We decide what they mean. 2 questions we're always asking and answering in every experience is, why did that happen and what does it mean about me? And we tell negative stories around that. We think it means something bad about us, especially as kids with limited awareness, limited intelligence, limited maturity. So we feel like we are affected by what has happened to us. Yet if we are really to deconstruct the problem is in those moments of pain, we've told a story that implicates us, directs attention to us, blames us. So it's not that when you were young, the school teacher called you stupid. It's that when she called you stupid, you decided she was telling the truth. It's not that you were rejected or bullied or teased or hurt. It's when those things happen, you decided it meant because you were no good. So this is really cool, right? Because immediately you start to realize that you're not the actor in the story, you're the storyteller, and you're not the victim, you're the bully. I had an incredible conversation with someone the other day around this because they were struggling to get this concept big time. Just really felt like they were just so upset at the people who'd ripped them off, the people who'd hurt them, the people who'd left them with nothing, who talked down to them, who'd used them their whole life. And I said to this lady, what do you think about bullying? How do you feel about bullying? She says, bullying is it's horrible. Like she says, my a friend of mine, her son got suspended for bullying, and I could not even look at my friend. Such was the disgust I felt for the fact that her son was a bully. I just have no tolerance, zero tolerance for bully. I went, uh-oh. So what do you mean, uh-oh? I said, well, here's an interesting idea. Your whole life has been impacted by a bully, and you are that bully. You were the first person to decide that you were no good. You were the first person to actually speak harshly to yourself. You were the first person whose opinion actually cut you deep. It wasn't anybody else. Lots of people said and did things, but it was your agreement that sealed the deal. And she was horrified. But it was a breakthrough moment, because it was like, oh my goodness, I created this mess. I am responsible for my own insecurity, and it's no one else's fault. If I'm responsible, well, then I have the power to change it. So it changes everything. It's incredibly empowering. The next practice is to stack the pain. So again, I'm interested in what you think that means. What does stacking the pain mean to you, and how do you think that would be useful? Why does stacking the pain make the list? How does it get to be part of the 12? Most people are really using pain against themselves. So it's common for people to have pain associated to what they don't want. But what they don't want is discomfort, and they've linked pain to being uncomfortable. They've linked pain to change. They've linked pain to the uncertainty of stepping into the unknown. And so every cell in their body, which is hardwired for pain avoidance, is resisting them moving forward. But if you were to actually realize that pain is a loving voice, its intention is to move you away from danger and into safety, and then really understand that there is a massive amount of pain linked with insecurity. Insecurity costs massively. Left unaddressed, it leads to madness, right? So there's a mountain of pain to focus on if you were just to look behind you and notice what it's like, what's the cost of being here. And if you can get to the point where the cost of being here and the pain of being here is greater than the pain of change, then you've created a threshold moment in your life where you'll do whatever it takes. Because whatever is involved in change, it could not be as painful as staying here. People go, this is hard. It's hard work doing this personal development. Yeah, it is. And you only take a step forward when you realize that it would be harder to stay here than it would be to move forward. That's the gift of pain. It's a loving voice. It's an honest voice. It's so useful. So simply by focusing on the cost, by doing a cost analysis of how insecurity is impacting your relationships, your health, your finances, how it's keeping you stuck, how it's getting you what you don't want. That's such a useful practice. In fact, it's an essential practice. You don't change unless there's pain. If everything's fine, why change? Why do any hard work? Why do anything different? We only change because of a dissatisfaction with here. So that using that to your advantage is a massive part of this process. Now, the next, just lost the chat bar. I can't see where that. Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's well said, Lucy. Make it hurt enough so you deal with it. Yep. That's the practice. If you can easily avoid pain, you can easily pretend that's okay. That's what most people do. In fact, that's how they survive. They avoid the pain of being here and link pain to being there. And so they just stay exactly where they are. That's not going to work in terms of change. So practice number 4 is then to have a compelling vision, because if you just link everything to pain, then eventually you'll make change and the pain will die down, and so will all the motivation. So having a compelling life vision is actually essential to change as well. Now my slides have frozen. That's not very fun, but you can still see the four. So I'll keep working through them, even though it's stuck on stacking the pain. Practice 4 is to have a compelling life vision. So in order to create lasting change, you have to have more than just a moving away from a strategy. You've got to have a moving towards strategy as well. So what do you want? What's the dream? What would excite you? You're the hero in this story. This is the hero's journey for you to go face the dragon and solve this problem. The hero's got to have a quest. There's got to be a reason to do this. It's got to be something driving you beyond just what you don't want. That's powerful, but not as powerful as what you do want. It's a hard question. It's the adult question. Most people have shut that puppy down because it's dangerous and it exposes them to what they're afraid of. But nevertheless, to desire is human. So each of us have that inside of us. So giving yourself permission to tap into the dream again and articulate that and put that out there. Talk about what you do want and how you, when you think about the end of your life, then imagine not achieving this. Imagine living with the music still inside you, dying with the music still inside you. How disappointed you would be. So this sense of quest and mission and purpose becomes an essential part. In fact, everyone who's solved this problem has had that strong driver. They are clear about what they want. Otherwise, this all gets too hard very quickly. The moment you lose sight of what you want and why you want it, then the change process stops. Practice 5 is to get help from someone who doesn't care about you. I have a lot of fun with this. I'll be interested by what you think that means and why you think that makes the list. Because my very first job when I get to coach someone is to convince them that although I look like someone who cares and sound like someone who cares, they can't confuse me for someone who cares. And I push it as hard as I possibly can. Why do you think that makes the list? Think about the people you've involved in your own change journey over the years and how effective or ineffective they've been. Because I think most of the time we do go to people who have a vested interest in our result and they can't help but speak to us out of that vested interest. They care about us. They like us. They love us. They want us to be happy. They want us to be okay. They don't like to see us suffering. So they try and fix us, give us advice. Yeah, Lucy says to get to the core of the issue without worrying if you will offend. Well, that's exactly what happens, because when I get to show up as someone who doesn't care and I have no vested interest other than to serve this person to get what they want, all of a sudden it's impossible to offend them because I'm safe. Because I don't care. Not my life, not my problem. I'm not losing any sleep over this. I'm not another person who wants you to do something you don't want to do. What do you want? And what are you going to do about it? Cool. How can I help you do that? So just means you get to swing away. Like, I'm astounded at what I can get away with saying, not because I'm just trying to be provocative or offensive, but you just get to have the most honest conversations around what's really happening, because it doesn't make sense to play around. Because it's safe, to be honest. You can't do awareness and judgment at the same time. So I think in order to change insecurity, you're going to need to see a bunch of stuff in your life, and you can't see it in the presence of judgment. So if someone has a vested interest, even if it's a positive one, that's still judgment. They still have an agenda. They're not safe. You could get the answer wrong. You could disappoint them. It's not okay to come out of hiding. So you never get to the core issue, and then you end up just behavior managing yourself. So choosing someone, at some point, the hero is going to need some help. Every hero. There's always a Gandalf, there's a Dumbledore, there's a Yoda, every hero. And they've got to be the right kind of guide. Because sometimes, like I've got lots of friends in this help space, and I think the greatest challenge for counsellors, psychologists, coaches is not to get in the way, not to confuse who is the hero in this story. And I think lots of times people go into this industry so they can be the hero. It feels good to fix other people. It feels good to give advice. It feels good to be the one who made a difference in someone else's life. But all the time you disempower the person who's actually trying to solve this. You keep them weak. And, as the hero in the story, you created this problem, so only you can solve it. If all you needed was someone else's words, someone else's encouragement, just click open Instagram and go read the first 3 memes and problem solved. It's not someone else's encouragement or belief that will fix this for you. It's your own. To the role of coach, someone objective, someone outside of you who can help you see the process, who can get you out of story, get you out of your own head. Because this will feel so true for you because you've gathered so much evidence that this story is real, but it's just a story. You're going to need objectivity to solve that, and that's going to come from another person. But then eventually, in every hero's journey, Gandalf's gone, Dumbledore's not there, Yoda is away. It's just the hero. And you kind of have this confronting and horrible moment where no one's coming to save you. Like, oh, this is all me. So that's a big challenge because it's like we want to be saved. We want someone else to fix it for us. This realization that we're the only one left, we're the only one who can do it is terrifying. But when you actually face that and realize that's the way it has to be, you kind of realize that there's only one way out of this, and that's through. And you are the hero in this story, so you better go do what the hero can do. And specifically when it comes to solving insecurity, the hero's work is to go fight the dragon and to go face the fear, to go work out once and for all if you are good enough or not. Is this story true or is it made up? Are you valuable? Do you deserve love, or do you need to settle for what you can get? And it's terrifying because what if you find the answer is no, you're not enough, no, you're not worthy of love? Well, that would be horrible. What if you find the monster is real and it's going to kill you? Well, you'll die. But the hero does that work and realizes it's all a work of fiction. It's all a story. I often, this is a really fun stage in coaching someone and setting them up to do this work, because what they're actually doing is going back and reviewing the stories they told as kids, the stories that have been unreviewed. They're going back to the very first time they decided the reason stuff happened was because it meant they were no good. And they're just going back to review the data. They're going back to deconstruct that story. Often I see people trying to rewrite the story from today, just going, I'm not going to go back. I don't want to think about the past. I'm just going to be positive and just going to give myself permission to flourish today. Like, well, that's good, but good luck with that, because if the prevailing narrative in your life says that you're not enough, well, that's going to sabotage all forward progress, and the handbrake will still be firmly on. To make change, you got to go all the way back to the start. And finally, having gone all the way back to the start, cleaned the slate, deconstructed the old story, now you're free to rewrite a new one. You wrote the first story, so you already know how to write stories. People who succeed in life they just do so off the quality of the stories they tell. They just tell better stories. So here's an interesting distinction, right? Because often people think the real work of the hero is to go work out who they really are. I get that, and it's close, but there's a better question than who am I for the hero that revolves around this rewriting the story piece. What do you think is the higher quality question, better than who am I? What comes to mind for you? What's better than who am I? Yep, you've got it. Who do I want to be? Going back to think, who am I really? How would you find that out? Because you're likely to go look at the data of what you've done, what others have said about you, your past mistakes and failures, victories and successes. How would that be an accurate representation of who you really are? That's just been the story you've lived out of. So it's not useful to go down that path. It's not going to get you anything solid. The key question is, who do you want to be? And do you give yourself permission to be that person? Because if you do, then you're allowed. And if you don't, well, then you can't. Having given yourself permission to be who you want to be, now it's time to write that story, to script that in, to make that true. We'll find evidence for whatever we believe is true. And that's the work of the hero. So these 7 practices, they're all simple and hard. There's lots of work to do in each, but it's good work and it's clear work. And that's the process. for solving insecurity. So I don't know what comes up for you when you think about that and when you notice where you're at in your own life. I'd be fascinated if you had an idea about which of the 7 practices you are working on at the moment, or maybe where you've got stuck, or where you've stopped. And interestingly, this is the cycle. So just because you do this once, it enables you to get unhindered, and then you take territory and inevitably, find the next barrier, the next insecurity shows up, the next level of uncertainty. You realize you're good enough for that last level. What are you good enough for this level? So it's a process that gets repeated again and again and again as we grow higher and deeper and stronger. So, be fascinated by where you think you're currently at, which of these 7 practices. Thanks, Lucy. Stuck before the hero story. As in trying to find the origin of your story. Some others are stuck at responsibility. Some are just deciding to turn on the light. Cool. Getting clear about what you want is the hardest thing. Yeah, that's a big challenge for most people. Okay, cool. Thanks, Lucy. Actually being the hero. Thanks, Judy. Realizing need to take responsibility. Yeah, it's confronting. It's hard. Blame and excuse is so much easier. It just doesn't let you change anything. Cool. Well, look, I hope that's been useful, just to be clear around the process and to realize that, you might not like that process. That's totally fine. But the point is, it doesn't really matter whether you like it. This is the way that people solve insecurity. So it is hard, but every time you run away from it, it doesn't get any easier. You don't actually find that there's some shortcut or some way of dodging it. Dodging it is avoiding it. And every time you avoid what is real, you weaken your own self-esteem. You teach yourself you don't have what it takes to deal with life. So obviously I run coaching programs around this. And if anyone is interested in exploring what that's like or how I do that, you've got my email. You've registered for this webinar. I'd love to make a time to talk through with you how I do that. Obviously, like, you're going to need help. Sure, we kind of get that point, and I'm not the only person who can give help. But if you're interested in seeing how I do the help and the process that I take people through, just let me know. You can send me a message on the chat now or email me straight after the call, and I'll set up a time to walk you through this process so that you can become clear about how that works. Otherwise, any questions you might have, anything I could clarify for you about this, anything that you're not quite sure on, how this works, happy to take you off mute, or happy just to answer any questions you might like to type in.